Please Stay Awake. Written by J.T. Grogan. Dark, cold, and eerie. Those were the only words I can come up with to describe the house in which I had lived with my family for the majority of my life. Mostly dark, blistering cold during the winter, and always eerie. Sometimes, there would be strange noises coming from the cellar. It'd often give me the creeps, though I would never admit that to my mother. I'd figure I was too old to let some silly noises scare me away. I'd been trying to act like the man of the house ever since my dad left when I was 7. I had always hoped I would never turn out like my father, whom I hated with a burning passion. As far as he goes, I suppose I'd better just leave it at that. I lived in the house with my mother Linda and my uncle Kevin on a vast piece of land in Steinen, Indiana. Steinen was a tiny piece of shit in the middle of nowhere. Nobody liked living there. I didn't have any friends because I was homeschooled, and I had never seen another kid my age in Steinen, since we almost never left the home unless my mom had to go into town to buy groceries. However, I was always very close to my Uncle Kevin. When I was little, he would tell me ghost stories right before bed, which my mother hated. "Stop it, Kev. You're gonna give him nightmares," she would snap. Oh, but I did get nightmares indeed. And sometimes, it seems as though the nightmares refused to end. They crept into the back of my mind like a spider crafting its web. The story he told most often was one about a monster with a contorted body and black eyes. According to the legend, as my uncle called it, even though I knew he made it up himself, the monster would come into your room if you were awake past your bedtime and hide in your closet, watching you the whole night. Of course, this was just a silly little tale that Kevin would tell me, so I wouldn't stay up late. Even so, I can't tell you how many times that horrible creature has popped into my head over the years. On this particular night, I decided to go to my bed early in an attempt to sleep off a pounding headache. I lied down on my icy bed, and I sank underneath the covers, hiding my face from whatever may be lurking inside of my head. After setting my glass down on the nightstand beside my bed, I reached over and flicked the light off. The darkness made me feel alive in a very strange way. Almost as though it was memorized by the nothingness. As I looked around the room, seeing almost nothing but the pitch black darkness surrounding me, I felt entranced, as if something was forcing me to look. Of course, there was nothing to look at least not with the eyes. This was something you could only witness within the deepest corridors of your mind, the part of your mind that you always dread visiting and can never seem to return from. Out of nowhere, I began to hear scratches upon the window above my bed. My eyes completely bursted open, and I felt like I was unable to close them. "What the fuck was that?" I asked. "Nothing. Of course, it was nothing." It couldn't have been anything, right? Right. Just my mind playing tricks on me in the dark. No big deal. But in a moment of childish curiosity, I decided to peer out the window, just to make sure that I was hearing nothing more than a tree branch brushing up against the glass. But then it hit me like a bag of bricks. There is no tree next to my window. Still, I decided it would be better to sleep it off and think more about it in the morning. It was probably all in my head. It had to be. I found it unusually difficult to fall asleep that night, as if somebody or something was trying to keep me up. I woke up the next morning with that sound still locked in my brain. It had to have been coming from somewhere. But where? Shit, I had no idea. But then I remembered. The cellar. I built up as much courage as I could muster and slowly crept down into the abyss. Jesus, I haven't been down here in a year, maybe longer. I had almost forgotten what it looked like. Nothing but clouds of cobwebs and stacks of cardboard boxes shoved up against walls. I rustled through a couple of boxes until I stumbled upon a picture I'd drawn when I was a child. It was a sketch of a grotesque creature. It definitely wasn't human. This thing barely even had a face, just dark black eyes and no mouth. Its body was tall, thin, and was contorted into a shape I had never seen before. The more I looked at the drawing, the more I was reminded of the story that my uncle used to tell me. It appeared to be reigning above the creature, and towards the bottom of the paper, I had scribbled, "Please, stay awake," in giant letters. I didn't know what the hell that was supposed to mean, but I folded up the paper and stuffed it into my pocket. I quickly made my way up the staircase into the kitchen and went about my day as usual, keeping that drawing in my mind, trying to remember what it meant and why I'd drawn it in the first place. I looked outside and noticed it had begun to rain. I didn't want to think about the creature any longer, so I walked into my dimly lit room and plopped onto my bed. I fell asleep before I even knew it. When I awoke, it was exactly 3 a.m. This night was colder and darker than usual. The farm was soaked with rain from earlier in the evening. The moon was full and radiant. It almost didn't look real. For an instant, I glanced out of my bedroom window, and I could swear I saw something walking quickly through the yard. When it spotted me, it slunk behind a tree, as if it were trying to hide from me. It looked exactly like what I had drawn when I was a child. I ran into Uncle Kevin's room and began shaking him awake. "Kevin! Kevin!" He rubbed the room out of his eyes. "What's up, bud? It's late," he asked, bewildered at my excitement. I looked him in his bloodshot eyes and softly said, "I saw somebody in the yard." Kevin looked at me with hesitation. "No, you probably just saw an animal. Get back to bed." I know what I saw. This was no animal, or at least not one I'd ever seen, not even in my worst fucking nightmares. I knew I couldn't tell him exactly what I had seen, as he would never believe me. "No, Kevin, it wasn't an animal. Please, it was a man. I think. Look, please, just go out and check." Uncle Kevin leapt up, grabbed his shotgun under the bed. "All right, come on. Show me where he is. Let's try to not wake up your mom. I'll scare the fucker off." We went outside, and I pointed to the tree. I whispered to Kevin, "I saw him behind that tree." My uncle bravely walked up to the tree and peered around it. Nothing. He searched the entire farm. Went over for half an hour, but he never found anyone or anything. "Let's go back in, bud. There's no one out here. Just keep the doors locked tonight." He was wrong. I knew there was something out there. I crawled into bed and threw the covers over my face. I could hear the blistering wind coming from outside. It pierced my ears with a whistle that I thought only dogs could detect. Suddenly, I heard a tapping on my window. The sound grew louder with each tap. I tightened the blankets around my body. The tap slowly turned into knocks. Louder and faster, the knocks became. The knocks turned into bangs. I thought the glass was gonna break. Then, out of nowhere, it stopped. No more taps, no more knocks, No more bangs. No more wind. I was relieved. Suddenly, I heard a low, chilling voice in my ear. Please, stay awake. It couldn't be. No, it couldn't be. I ran into the hallway, ready to make my way into my mother's room, and that's when I saw it. Whatever it was, I still don't know, but it was holding Kevin's lifeless, mangled body in its arms. Carved deeply into my uncle's torso were the words, "Please stay awake." I tried to let out a scream, but only silence filled the air. I sprinted to the door of my mother's bedroom, and I saw her body lying in the middle of the floor. She was covered in blood, and her arm has been ripped right out of its socket. Written next to her in her own blood were the words, "Please stay awake." I began to sob, and when I turned around, the creature was gone. I don't know where the hell it went, and I'm not sure I want to know. I closed my eyes as tightly as I could and let out the loudest scream I could muster. I called the police and lied down on the cold, now blood-soaked floor, waiting for them to arrive. It felt like hours. Finally, the police showed up to find me in the fetal position next to my mother's corpse. I told them everything I saw. I showed them my drawing. I told them about the tapes, the knocks, the bangs. I told them what I'd seen outside. But of course, they wouldn't hear a word of it. Why would they? All they could see was a lonely kid hovering over his dead mother, her blood covering my clothes, almost as much as it covered the floor. It's cold in the cell. It's dark and lonely. The silence is my only saving grace. It's constant, peaceful silence. Tonight it's raining outside. It's colder and darker and wetter than ever. But unfortunately, I must stop writing now. I just heard a tap on my window. This story, all the credit goes out to author J.T. Grogan. You can find his original post below, as I'm gonna go ahead and leave it in the description. Of course, you can follow him as well on Reddit, as he's known as Apostate93. I'll go ahead and link that as well. Please follow him, show him loves, show him support. Without him, I wouldn't have had the permission to narrate this for you. Other than that, guys, good night. Make sure to comment down below, follow me here, where the unknown becomes unforgettable.